You know, I've always wondered why people don't use this angle when they've got an idea and they're on the road, you know, hands-free and all that sort of stuff. And now I know why. But this is my annual roundup from the 2022 SHOT Show. For those who are new to the channel, this is something I do every year when I go to the show to show you guys the cool stuff that I saw, but also direct me on what I should be running after. If you guys don't think something is cool, then why should I waste my time on it? But this year I have an idea for a second video, second video, and that is all the stupid crap or all the bad crap that happened at SHOT Show this year. And to be honest, I don't have the energy to do that video today, but get me 10,000 likes on this video and we'll give you till Wednesday to do that. And I will come back with renewed vigor and tell you about all the drama that happened at SHOT Show 2022. Sound off in the comment section down below. Do I look more tired before or after I took a shower? Special thanks to Caliber Armor for making today's video possible. We'll talk more about them a little bit later on in the video when we do our booth stop there, but I'm always looking to double dip whenever possible when it comes to testing, and SHOT Show is no different. Recently, they came out with their new concealment carrier called the Gray Man, and what better opportunity to test it and see if it actually works than at a convention center with several tens of thousands of people. So to test it, I wore it to the show for an entire day and interacted with hundreds of people throughout that time, and the only person that readily identified that I was wearing body armor was Jared from Guns & Gadgets. And in my opinion, Jared wears body armor on a daily basis for his big boy job, and when he identified that I was wearing it, I was up close and we were sitting. Usually you fit your body armor while you're standing up, and I sat there and talked to him for about 20 minutes over coffee, and of course, you know, it's going to ride up and do various things during that time. So I think that's a pretty good indicator that it conceals very well. Which brings me to the highlight of my trip. Besides flying my girlfriend in a few days early because she'd never experienced Vegas before, and to be honest, I'd never been there in a recreational capacity. I'm always there for work. We went and saw a show, and then we also went to various things like the Real Bodies Museum. That was pretty cool.
I'm gonna have some wicked dreams tonight.
So having her in town was a lot of fun, but onto the actual show component of the trip, I would say that the highlight for me is seeing my friends. We're scattered all around the country. We only get to see each other a couple times a year, and I would put it like this. The strength of the firearms industry isn't just in its constitutional basis for existence, my phone, not yours. It isn't just in the commercial success that the industry experiences. It's in the people that make it happen. I am literally talking about you on camera right now for my roundup video. So I worked the show really, really hard, and for someone to run onto me even once is abnormal. If I see you multiple times around the show, then you have to also be working your ass off. And this show was no different, so I have a couple honorable mentions for people that I ran to on a regular basis. First is Anthony Miranda, the man with two first names, over at the Armed Scholar. Saw him multiple times. Jared over at Guns & Gadgets. Saw him a whole bunch. I want to say ate most of my meals with him. And then Braden Langley over at Langley Outdoors. I didn't realize what role one-liners played in my speech pattern until he started keeping a chronology of them. And I think at first he just thought I was drunk and something we'd joke about the next day because I would forget about it or whatever. And then he realized that that wasn't the case. And then maybe that I'd played a character on the internet, and there are lots of people in our industry that play characters on the internet. And it is clear that no one could keep up this charade this long. I am this big of a douchebag all the time. We did come to a consensus, Braden and I, that it's a really good thing that we are geographically separated by several hundred miles, or else we would most certainly be incarcerated. And that's the sweetest thing that anybody has ever said to me. On to the good stuff that I saw at the show. Number 1, an empty Springfield Armory booth. Look, I know that I sound like a broken record on this. The NSSF runs a show their way. It's their show. But if it was up to me, I would bar companies and organizations involved in scandals like the Springfield Armory situation for a period of time, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, till they fire all the people who were involved in the scandal. The light involved with that story is that Springfield finally makes a product that somebody actually wants, and here comes FN right in there, drop big donkey right on top of them and be like, hey, we can make that product better, get the hell out of here. FN, if you are watching today's video, please reach out to me. I would be happy to provide a pro bono evaluation of your new firearm in light of the new development of you essentially drawing and quartering Springfield Armory's profit potential for 2022. Thank you for providing this vital service to our industry, and let's jettison those tool bags. I want to be clear, Springfield voluntarily did not come, although it would be fantastic if the NSSF did kick them out. The general consensus that I got from everybody that I asked was that this was the best SHOT Show ever. This was my 9th SHOT Show, and I can definitively say that this was hands down the most productive show that I have been to. And that's simply because you can move. You could talk to people. People had time to speak to you. Nobody was really in a super big hurry to get anywhere because the attendance was down. The horde of Chinese that wash through people's booths, take a whole bunch of pictures to steal their intellectual property and then 3D print a copy of it to be on eBay next week. We're not there at the show. Also, what I refer to as the Walking Dead, we're not at the show. Whoa. Cool. Oh. Dude. Whoa. There were no swag FUD whores rolling around with the pull behind carts for me to trip over, although I will admit that did have the side effect of eliminating my favorite gambling game in Vegas. Basically, you go to the strip and you get all of the handouts from all of the strip clubs. They'll be there on the street and the dudes will hand you all the stuff and you basically collect those throughout the week. And then when you see the dudes pulling the pull carts, you just chuck them into their carts when they're not looking. So then they go back to their hotel room, and we know that with that level of swag gathering, there's no way that they can sort it all. So they just kind of dump it into their bag. And the gamble is, how many marriages do you ruin when they get home? But yeah, the general consensus was this was an excellent show because it was all the things that we need in an industry convention without all the chaff. On to hard products. So the first thing that I saw that I thought was cool was I got a message from my friend Rich Engstad to come see the commercial version of the PDW that they discussed at the last SHOT Show. Non-reciprocating charging handle, delayed blowback, shorty, recoil mitigation, etc. Fantastic job. They also were working on a 300 blackout version that I am very much looking forward to. Having shot it, is one of the softest shooting 300 blackout guns that I have ever fired. Franklin Armory went for it, and in typical fashion, released another in-your-eye product for the ATF, which is the binary trigger for the Glock platform. And I can say that it's not quite a Glock 18, but it's as close as you can get to a Glock 18 without actually being a machine gun. I stopped at the Aero booth to talk to them about their new suppressors and the new bolt gun that they've got coming, which I thought were fascinating, but I have a hard rule, and that is if I show up to your booth and you don't talk to me for 10 minutes, then I leave, and you can call me back on your time. If you're really busy at your booth, I'll come back. They were definitely not busy. Nobody talked to me, so instead I took these pictures of the forging process of one of their lowers, which I thought was pretty neat. Our friends at Hotson came up with a air gun called the Pile Driver, and they have started to work on their own projectiles for the thing because basically all the commercially available pellets for the thing were not sufficient. We're in the caliber booth, and a few other things I wanted to show you in addition to the Gray Man carrier that we talked about previously. You guys have seen this guy before. This is the poly plate from Caliber Armor. This is their 10 to 12. Now, I don't know about you guys, but some of us are shaped different than others. If I wear this plate, it does not cover my diaphragm because I have a very long torso. Well, Caliber has an answer for that. This is their brand spanking new poly plate, and you can see that it's got that shiny finish that they got there. This is their 11 by 14, and as you can see, not only do we have full clavicle coverage up here, but we get all the way down to that diaphragm. But they also went the other direction too. And this one, I didn't even know about this prior to the show, and I thought this was really neat. So, we're worried about the new age threats for our kids. We got chitlins at home. Look at this guy. This little thing is the soft armor variant that they've got going on. So all of your level 3A protection for your kids. And then if you really want to ramp it up, they've taken their plates, their steel plates, and I bet you can even hear them in here. Yep. Put them into a little baby carrier. Tell me that this is not the cutest thing that you've ever seen in your entire life. I took a stop at Global Ordnance to talk about the new variant of the Strybog. You guys have seen the Strybog different variants here previously. I think we did a version on the first one and the second one. Well, now they have a third one. It's the shorty model. Shorter is always better, even though that's not what your girlfriend told you. And what's cool about this one is it has the rail system cut into it, and you can actually use that thing with the rail retracted and the tail hook brace folded out, which is a fantastic iteration on an already excellent product. Radical Defense has moved heavily into the 3D printed game, specifically for their suppressors, but they had a proof of concept there at the show, which was basically everything 3D printed, and they've decided that due to public response to the things that they were doing at the show, that they're actually going to go ahead and commercially make that little demo piece that they had with all the rails and the handguard and stuff with all the holes cut out of it. There are things that you cannot do with traditional manufacturing techniques, or at least you can't do them in one piece. And then on top of that, there are things that would be prohibitively expensive to do with traditional manufacturing techniques that are accomplished by additive manufacturing. For instance, the grip or the handguard that they brought to the show. You could make those in a traditional machine shop, but they would be very expensive to make because it would take a lot of time to broach out each one of those little individual holes, and it would probably eat up a lot of tooling working in titanium. So they would be very expensive by the time, I would say probably 3 to 5 times more expensive than you'd be willing to pay for a handguard. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. When we're talking about direct laser sintering, we're talking about basically hours on your laser. And that's just something that is built into the cost of the machine. So the cost savings for the end consumer and the manufacturer are pretty sizable on that sort of thing. When we talk about moving over into the suppressor game, we're talking about a sealed device with no angles of attack on the actual geometry inside of the device, and it is literally impossible to do that without doing additive manufacturing if you want to manufacture it in one part. A lot of companies will be dishonest about that process and what it can bring to the table. And we are in agreement, me and the engineers at Radical, that we're looking at maybe 5% improvement on the technology of suppressors. So if there's anybody out there being like, this is the most groundbreaking thing that you've ever seen, we're going to get so much more performance out of this, that's just simply not true. And it's nice to see a company that's being honest about what their stuff can bring to the market. Moving on to BRG, and to be honest, I gave these guys a look because of my heritage. I saw that they were an Ohio-based company. I'm like, they're from Ohio. I have to at least give them a chance. So I stopped by and I was pleasantly surprised that it appears that they're bringing some very nice handguns into the country. And they'd be mad at me for saying this, but think better Canics. And remember back to the genesis of the Canic coming into the country, people were like, it's just a trashy import, it's gonna suck, all that sort of stuff. And today, it is one of 5 handguns that if somebody is looking to buy a high quality handgun in the United States, they're one of my recommendations. So I'm very interested to see what BRG does. The models that they brought to the range were fantastic. I did get some trigger time on them, and I'm looking forward to doing some more here now that I'm home. Hopefully we can reconnect, and I can actually do some field testing on some of their guns and give you guys a solid report, because they are poised to be the next great handgun. So I was walking around the dungeon that is SHOT Show's basement, and I came around the corner, and I was like, you know what? I was just in a suppressor mood, and I was looking for really cool suppressor hosts, and I saw what appears to be a rethink reload on the Contender line. And SSK is basically going after making those shorty pistols in the Contender line in all the popular calibers, like your 22s and etc. They're a break action pistol, so you don't have to worry about any of the gas leakage when you're talking about suppressors, and that's kind of what I was after that day. And I rounded the corner, and lo and behold, one of my buddies owns the freaking company and didn't even tell me about it. Shame on you, sir. Shame on you. And he's like, Kurt, I got something else I got to show you. So he literally ripped me away from the thing that I showed up to look at. And so they took me in and showed me their new muzzleloader contender. So if you remember back to like my childhood, deer hunting in the state of Ohio was either a slug gun or a muzzleloader. And there were lots of problems with muzzleloader technology at the time, but there was also a lot of expansion in muzzleloader technology that went in tandem with it. And one of those major problems was you measured your powder, and you were kind of beholden to either measuring it yourself, pre-measuring it, and then trying to get it in there really quick once you get in the field, or you used like the Pyrodex pellets or the 777 pellets, and you picked them up with a pipe cleaner and you dropped them in there. And I'm not trying to be mean to the people at Pyrodex, but if you weigh those things, they're not consistent at all. Again, anyway, on top of that, you put them down the barrel, and you had to like measure your rod to know that you had packed the thing the right distance, because if you didn't, then you'd crush them, and then you'd have a compressed load and all that sort of stuff. And I guess that's why it's a primitive weapon. SSK, they've gone to a sabot-less projectile that you ram down the barrel, and it stops at 2 points. So it's got 2 struts that hold it into place. And the idea is that gives you a consistent expansion chamber behind the bullet for all the powder to get burning. And then they replace the measured powder with essentially a blank that takes not only the primer, but also the powder charge behind the bullet. Now, the one thing that they did tell me that they were really going for with it on the outset, muzzleloader is not considered a firearm, okay? It's considered a primitive weapon. It's not regulated by the ATF. What they were trying to do was do an integrally suppressed muzzleloader, and the ATF didn't buy it. Okay, so they were trying to get basically a repeating muzzleloader that was integrally suppressed delivered directly to your door, and unfortunately that didn't pan out. So they just ran with the muzzleloader idea anyway, so good on them. If you remember back a few months ago, I did a video on the U.S. Arms Co. obnoxious break, and I said, hey, you know what? There's those guys right over there. I'm going to go talk to them. And they brought their full AR builds, and I have to say that they are very, very sexy weapons. I have to admit. I want one. They're very nice. And then on top of that, the little nugget that was hidden in there was they have a receiver that has a tensioning bar in it. So you basically push this little lever, and we've all had the AR play. What that does is suck all that play out of those lower receivers by rotating a tensioning bar into bear against the lug on the underside of the receivers. And I have to say, I'm like, hey, that's cool. SDS Imports is finally getting their number of T-Shosh imports up after having several container ships stuck off the coast. They've got several of the feature-rich models that all you guys that like the red dot on top of the pistol thing or be really into. But what grabbed my attention was the one with all the millimeters included, because it is my opinion that 10 millimeter 19 levels are going to continue to gain ground in the market. And I have a dream that one day 45 AARP will become obsolete. But they also brought with them a beautiful Marine Magnum 12 that not only was one of the prettiest weapons that I saw at the show, but included all of the evil features that you could ever want in a shotgun. And then last up, I don't actually know whose trigger this is, but this is a pivoting trigger. It was on display at a booth whose name I cannot pronounce. I'll have it on screen for you guys, but they were doing a true, dangerous word here, innovative design for a bolt-action AR rifle. It's not just the, hey, let's pull the gas tube out of the thing, and hey, look, you got a direct pull. No, they actually thought about some of the things that need to go into a high-end precision using the base of an AR to get there. And I'm interested to see where they go with that in the future. All right, guys and gals, well, that's all I've got on my roundup from the Shit Show at the SHOT Show edition 2022. If there's something that I covered that you guys want to know about, then sound off in the comment section down below. That will dictate the priority level of those after show inquiries. And if there's something that I didn't cover, because invariably the show is freaking huge and I can't cover everything, I will miss some things, then let me know about it and I will send an inquiry and see if we can't get it in for testing. As always, thank you to our Patreon and Subscribe Star participants that help us keep things running and keep the ammo flowing for all those reviews, even though it doesn't really even come close to covering the ammo bill. I do appreciate all you guys, and if you want to support the channel directly, then you can do that, or you can visit our affiliates page where when you buy something, it comes back to us, or at least hopefully most of the time people pay their bills anyway. But also, thank you to Caliber Armor for making today's video possible. And I'm going to bed.